earlier in the month of August. Now this is the second in line. So we have also organized the technical tours in the factories to educate the student and faculty, so that gap between the academia and the industry can be we can bridge the gap between the academia and the industry also. So recently, actually Global President Dennis Knight visited Chandigarh on 17 September, and he has a interaction with the students of Chandigarh University, and a great interaction of Chandigarh members, ASHRAE members, and have government meetings also. And he appreciated the work done by the ASHRAE Chandigarh chapter. So I will not take much of time, because technical insight, technical details regarding the today's webinar, which is based on the water and energy. So I will welcome Mr. Mallikarjun Kamblai for his expert talk. So I will again welcome him to start his webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Welcome everyone. Well, this is my, I think, third tech talk being organized by ASHRAE Chandigarh chapter. I should thank the organizers and also the ASHRAE Rajasthan chapter and FEMA, Federation of Energy Managers and Auditors. I hope my screen is visible now. Hello?
Visible, sir.
Okay. Now, before I brief, let me just put it like this. Basically, whether it is ASHRAE Chandigarh, ASHRAE Rajasthan, or FEMA, or ASHRAE chapters of various cities across the country, it is basically we all network together. We network for social contacts, business development, and support each other's personal and professional needs. In fact, I'm really happy being down south. I'm associated with Chandigarh chapter. I should really thank Mr. Manikanna for having accommodated me there. And those of us who are actually not members of either ASHRAE or ISHRAE, I appeal to you to consider joining ASHRAE chapter, for a simple reason that we get to know more at very nominal cost. Now, having mentioned FEMA, Federation of Energy Managers and Auditors, is it's a federation wherein it has set an objective of working in the interest of energy professionals. The very objective is empowering energy managers and energy professionals. So, you will also get to know more about what FEMA would be doing. Kindly, you can join or you can Google through FEMA.network to understand the objectives. It's very elaborately established, and I hope that you will be doing a noble job in the days to come. Having said about our networking aspects, I would warmly welcome you all on the most happening topic. I call this as happening topic. Although water energy, two faces of a coin, is an article which was written by me way back in 2005, and I continue to use the same topic, so same caption in most of my presentations. But here I am trying to sensitize you all on another value added aspect, which again is being discussed widely in the market. So I would like to orient myself water properties and impact on energy. That's basically nothing but water energy, two faces of a coin, and its impact on decarbonization and its effect in complying to ESG reporting standards. ESG reporting standards is basically environment, social and governance reporting standards, where most of the energy professionals will have to focus on water and energy to minimize waste generation and increase contribution towards social well-being and also governance compliance. Of late, why I recaption this particular topic today towards ESG is most of the disasters are today water related. If you have seen, most of them are all water related, and it is either drought or flooding. And if at all there is any health issue, it is because of waterborne diseases which take a break, which outbreak all the other parameters. So I would be touching upon these aspects with respect to water. Now, on the other side of it, how has water affected our urbanization, and in what way our carbon emissions have gone up, or in what way we can reduce our carbon emissions is another topic. Well, this is, I would like to remember few great think tank philosophers who way back in 1700, Mr. Thomas Fuller, he phrased this particular topic. Maybe he realized the importance then and then put it across. He says, we never know the worth of water till the well is dry. And we have all seen that. We have all seen that during drought, how the entire economy gets shaken, specifically with respect to India being agricultural driven economy. I would also like to mention Mr. Auden, who in his early 1900 said, thousands have lived without love, but no one, not one without water. There is a lot of meaning that he has put in this particular phrase of his, and these two are the two major factors which drive the entire presentation of mine in the subsequent part. Now, having remembered these two great personalities, I would like to just touch upon or dwell more on what water is and what are its properties and how they actually touch our daily activities. Now, if you see, water is available to us free of cost. Mother Nature gives us ample amount of water without discriminating caste, creed, geographical borders, and it is coming to us free of cost. And this water which reaches us is pure, clean water. Now, what makes the difference is because of our attitude, because of the way how we handle water, it either becomes a cause of spreading of all the diseases, or it also is a cause for all cure. Water cures all the diseases, and at the same time it can even magnify the diseases to a certain extent. And on the other side of it, the next part is water is the primary driver for all the sources of energy. Whether you take hydel, we take thermal or nuclear or even the renewable energy resources. Renewable energy may not directly consume water, but the humidity and other parameters will define the energy generation capacity of most of the renewable energy resources. And one more important aspect is water is also considered to be the deadliest weapon on earth. And because of our negligence, today water is being sold at a very exorbitant price, as low as 20 rupees to as high as somewhere around 160 rupees, depending on the source where it is coming in from. Now I just try to put freeze in here. Water brings in life. Without water we can't survive. Water brings in abundant amount of energy. Water brings in great economical developments and metamorphic changes in our economical structure. Water also brings in peace, be it within the house, within the colony, within the society, or within the city, state, or the countries. Today we have Karnataka, Maharashtra fighting for water, Karnataka, Goa fighting for water, Karnataka, Andhra. Me being more resident of Karnataka, I have referred this, but it is equally important that all other states will also have cross-border disputes. Now, if water is properly addressed, it is also the water also brings in prosperity in all our activities in day-to-day life. Now starts my real concern as to why we should focus on water and how actually it defines the very theme of this today's topic. The very picture tells you that we have been facing this of late. And my observation is once in 10 years, we have severe calamities. Approximately 10 to 12 years it has been varying of late. But the subsequent observations, you will see that almost once in every 10 years, there is somewhere or the other an issue coming up with respect to water. You can see this child. Now, in the recent days, okay, I'll just touch upon this part first and then go back to the previous slide. See, in the recent, if you see the number of events that have been happening with respect to water has been rising exponentially. If you take 1900 base year and that as the zero, today we have somewhere around 500 events in a year, which as of 2006, but that has grown up now further, and number of deaths have also gone up equally. Now if you look on the right side of the screen, you have GDP. Now I am referring to GDP mainly because our economical activities have been rising and it is almost in line with the water calamity that has been disasters that we have seen is almost synchronized with the growth of our GDP, that is economical development. That means to say the amount of energy that we have been consuming is equally responsible for all the disasters that have been happening of late. Some recent rainfall related disasters I would like to mention. These are all very shortly, even in just 2-3 years time. In July 21, we saw flooding in Maharashtra, that's Chiplun, which is supposed to be on Western Ghats. Then we have also seen the recent Assam flooding, and May 23, it was in major accidental roads across the country. Then in July 24, it was in Kerala, Wayanad district, where the entire hill terrain washed away the cities. And in July 18, we saw again Assam being hit by flooding, and where almost 16 districts in Assam got dismantled. So these occurrences have been happening very fast. They have been rising, and we will have to see what best we can do to avoid all these natural calamities happening, because it is the one that could probably dismantle our entire way of life. Now, if you look at this, starting from 1900 again to around 2000, there has never been major change in the amount of water that we receive, rainfall that we receive. It is almost same. I have just taken one particular city, one particular area. You take any area, any state, the average annual rainfall is almost steady. There can be plus or minus 200 mm or 300 mm, but then it has not made any major change. Looking at the kind of disasters that water has been creating. So where are we? Where are we at fault? Is it the mother nature, or it's our own work culture? Now, having discussed about what it is all these days, the next topic that I would be touching upon is, why is water concerned, and how do we actually get infected or ask for more electrical energy or energy demand? Why is the energy demand going up? Like I said earlier, water is clean, and clean water or the polluted water is all that we actually need to consider here. Now, what actually is clean water? In clean water, again, we have pure, soft, clean drinking water. We also have clean water, but with lot of hardness, that is the dissolved salts, which actually make much of a difference. Now, when I say polluted water, what are the pollutants? How do we define pollutants is another parameter that we'll have to consider here. Now, whether it is clean water or a hard water or a polluted water, how does it actually change the energy demand? How can we see that the power demand is optimized and we reduce energy consumption? Now, if we review our thing, if we can go back to our olden days, we all used to go have a pot, fill it from the lake or from the nala or from the whatever local names that we have been using. A small pot of water we used to fetch from open surface and carry it home. It never attracted any energy, except that human energy was used either to lift the water or to fill the water into the pot and carry it home. But today we are all spending huge amount of electrical power, either or to some extent even thermal power, and this has resulted into a huge amount of power demand and increase in energy consumption. To go back to our net zero emission compliance levels, I think water is one part. If we can respect water, if we can consider water and worship water the way people in Rajasthan worship, then probably the day will be very safe and very near, wherein everyone can probably fetch water from the open well, as I understand. Now, having said all this, I'll also touch upon what actually calls for ESG standards reporting and how actually it brings in its compliance. Okay, now I discussed about clean water and I also mentioned about polluted water. Now in clean water we have rainwater, water from streams, rivers, ponds and lakes. But except for rainwater, streams, rivers, ponds and lakes can now be polluted because of the sewage, wastewater that is left unattended, pesticides that are being used in agricultural fields, plastics, garbage and other oil waste which we invariably discard in open environment. Now how does this actually affect? If you look on the health aspect, see, clean water is what actually cures all our diseases. But when it is polluted by these contents, it brings in diarrhea, respiratory infections and other diseases. We also have so many other diseases here mentioned which are basically water driven: diarrhea, cholera, dysentery, typhoid. And one more important part is most of these cholera, dysentery or typhoid, they come in the early monsoon days. Dysentery is very often seen when it starts raining. That is a clear indication that water is driving away all the the spillages which are openly thrown in the urban areas. These are carried over by the water and the concentration of pollutants increases in our reservoirs. And we take that, and unfortunately, I'm sorry if I'm abusing some or making an objectionable statement here, we believe water treatment plant would be doing a job of purifying the water. No. Water treatment plant will only filter the water from solids, and addition of few chemicals will reduce the pollutants level. It cannot purify the water. So it only reduces the impact. So most of us have also been saying, okay, rainwater harvesting is one technology where we would, but I would not like to touch upon rainwater harvesting now because we had an earlier session on this and it again is a separate topic by itself. Now, what is the remedy to all these issues? Remedy is, please respect water, conserve wherever it is, let us not pollute by unsensible civic sense. Let's behave as good citizens, understand the importance, and see that water comes to our rescue as and when we require that. Now, this is again what I mentioned about clean water. Clean water can be hard water, clean water can be soft water. Now, why is hard water and soft water important for our survival? Today, the need for the scarcity of soft water has gone up to such an extent that every household now has a water softener or a water purifier. Now, what does this mean? It means that our energy consumption has gone up, our expenditure on lifestyle has gone up, and still we tend to have good amount of infections at home. So that means even the so-called water purifying devices that we use at home are not purely working to their full efficiency. Apart from this, you will also see soft water softeners that we are using are mostly for drinking purpose and cooking purpose. Now, what happens to our daily requirements? Washing, either washing clothes or utensils or taking bath. It has a direct impact on various energy consumption appliances that we have. Now, I would just, for those of you who would like to know more about it, I have retained this slide, but it is basically total dissolved solids that we touch upon. I have already discussed about this. Okay, now here, what are the impacts? When I talk about health, it is skin irritation, basically skin itching or dryness, hair damage. Many of us accept that because of the water contaminants, use of hard water while taking bath, having our head wash, we lose our hair. And also mineral deposits, which is predominantly seen in the visual presentation that I have made. Then soap marks and potential other health risks such as allergies or sensitivity issues. Now, everybody will have seen this. I have just given this because this is visible to us in open sense. Now, what happens inside a geyser? Why is it that our water taps are frequently calling for a replacement or calling for service? Either we lose on minor washers, or sometimes the water tap doesn't perform properly, or we frequently find that heating coil keeps failing every now and then. It's because the amount of total dissolved solids in the water, that is basically the hardness, has gone up beyond acceptable limits. I am talking with respect to domestic use. Now look at industrial establishments. Industries too require a lot of good water, soft water. But today the situation has come where there is a chemical department, which focuses mainly on maintaining or supplying softened water. And that also is not basically meeting the actual requirements. And as such, the energy demand has gone up both in the industrial sector and domestic sector. Now, those of us who have been using steam will know the importance of having soft water. Now, these are some of the additional visuals which I have tried to show. The entire asset, basically the plumbing, has also called for quality water. If you see the image here, the rusting happens because of the hardness of the water, and of course the moisture content and the oxidization. The heating coil inside is also a good example, and so is the case with respect to the washing machine at the bottom. So these are some of these. And another reason is, it is not just increasing the energy demand and the power demand, the lifespan of the entire asset is also being hampered. So that means if we don't respect the water, if we don't maintain certain water quality, then we will have to churn out more and more budget for capital expenses like replacement of washing machines, replacement of heating coils or geysers, replacement of plumbing, which is a major headache. Because today in the civil engineering field, if you ask anybody, it is not other people, it is only the plumber, electrician who are the major problem creators, be it new building or a old building, because it calls for a major revamp of the entire building structure. So this is another very important reason, and that is the reason why I said water, energy are two faces of a coin. At the same time, with increase in energy demand, with increase in power demand, we are emitting out more and more emissions. And that is the reason why I again say, if we can respect water, we would be moving more towards decarbonization, or you can say net zero carbon emissions. I know it is very impossible to go towards net zero, but we can move towards net zero. And best example why I say we can go more towards net zero is lifestyle in villages. Urbanized city life is something very difficult, but if you look at a village life or a rural life, urban life, it is rural life, you will understand that they are much better because their energy intensive is much lesser. Now this I think is what we have already touched upon. I already mentioned about the health benefits. Now environmental impact. Now what does this mean? The more amount of water pollution calls for more soap usage. If I have to wash any of my clothes or utensils, I will have to use more of chemicals. That is basically the soap or the distemper, whatever Vim bar or whatever the chemicals that are available in the market. That means I am further polluting the water by consuming excess chemicals. Earlier I remember we used mud as a cleaning agent. Today mud is no longer being used as a cleaning agent. Instead we have chemicals. Now what does this again mean? That means our economic considerations also has a major impact because our monthly budget goes up due to increase in demand for all these chemical additives in our life. Okay. What is the best way of softening the water? I won't touch upon any of the technologies here. I would only say the rainwater that we receive before it touches the soil, earth, is pure distilled water. Now when it takes fall from the cloud to the earth, it passes through various layers of air, and when it comes down it picks up lot of oxygen in it, and that's what basically most of the aerator systems do. And rainwater, if we all have tasted it, is much sweeter. But only thing is, very moment it touches the ground, it loses its sanctity, it loses its purity. So best way is to capture the rainwater, see that it doesn't get polluted. Rooftop water can be captured, channelized to our water source. If you have a well or open well or a bore well, use it for direct recharging. Of course, not by directly allowing the water to take a dip into the sink, through again Mother Earth. It has to pass through Mother Earth, which is the best filter that anybody can see. My appeal is not to loosen the soil surrounding the borewell and allow the water to pass through. It again means that we are having sand filter, which is not a good quality of filter that most of the rainwater harvesting technicians are doing today. Keep around 15 to 30 feet away. This is again, it can even be 10 feet if you are using black cotton soil, and 25 to 30 feet if you are using red sandy soil. So these some of the topics which I would say try to adopt this, and in case you don't have a well or a bore well, see if you can retain the water in a tank. This is what has very well been established or very well been tested and shown by people from Rajasthan. I really have lots of respect and lot of regard for the kind of innovations that our forefathers have adopted. Of course, since Rajasthan is also part of our event today, they all will know that there are a good amount of technologies which is available, but we need to bring about those to the surface in today's economy. Most of these technologies have been phasing out, but it is time that we focus more on these technologies and see how best they do actually. In fact, the water that has been retained by these people in Rajasthan doesn't have any bacterial growth, whereas in case of the water that we see, in no days we will start finding some larva moving in the water, whereas people who store the water for years together in Rajasthan, they don't find this kind of bacterial growth in their water reservoirs. I think that is something that we will have to consider and propagate more and more on increasing the water softening availability. Now, this is where I said we can go net zero emissions. When we recall all these old technologies that our elders or our forefathers have built, we are certainly going towards net zero. Okay, this I think I have more or less summarized here. Now, once our energy demand comes down, that means our power demand comes down. If our power demand comes down, then our demand need for new power generating infrastructure gets minimized. If our demand for power generation gets minimized, demand for conventional power source, that is basically the coal, gets minimized. If we can do that, that means our emissions also get minimized. See, in fact, there is a lot of logic that needs to be applied when we address water and other carbon emissions. In between, energy is one commodity which actually relates carbon emissions and water by various methods that we have already discussed here. It is not just about emissions, it also brings in very healthy and economic development in our day-to-day activities. And important point is this: respecting water, rainwater, or means and methods of going in for quality water doesn't call for a huge capital expenses, whereas power demand calls for huge capital expenses plus a big drain on our pockets on monthly budgets. Every one of us, we have seen that, so I would not try to impress you all much on that. But then, yes, energy cost is a major part, and the amount of money that we spend for water harvesting or addressing the water related issues is almost very negligible. 25,000 to 50,000 for a domestic application and few lakhs for industrial applications. Maybe depending on the quantum of water that one requires, it could vary. But then that is very, very nominal compared to the energy demand. I would say power demand in the first, minimized energy consumption, energy savings that we have obtained, plus failure of assets. In fact, I have been most of my discussions of late, I have been talking about ISO 55001. In our COVID days, we had a session again by Ashray Chandigarh chapter where we had a discussion on ISO 50001 and its related standards. During this period, I had touched upon ISO 55001. In fact, we all look at the way how we drive the car. When we buy a car, we look at what is the fuel consumption, what is the comfort zone, what is the amount of distance that I can travel in one fill up. We consider 101 parameters. But in case of assets, industrial part, if anybody is using an industry or even for that matter our domestic appliances, we have never bothered or we have not considered it significant enough to record when we bought the asset, how much of revenue has gone up both in terms of energy consumption and in terms of its repairs and maintenance. And we are also not sure when we are going to replace these assets in the days to come. So this calls basically to all the sectors. When I say ISO 55001, 55001 basically is for industries, but the same logic applies to our domestic appliances as well. Now, having said this, I would now just would like to touch upon ESG standards reporting. Today, we are all very much concerned about energy consumption or quality water that is required. Now, what has the world been asking for? Today, if I am talking with respect to industrial perspective, every product that is manufactured needs to be carbon rated. The lower the value, higher the price that one can expect. This is what has been being discussed of late. And also, it has become the responsibility of the corporate entity to declare its commitment to greener world. And this is mostly coming in by way of ESG reporting standards. ESG, as I said before, is basically environment, social and governance reporting compliances. Now, all these are basically covered under various practices that have been enacted by these acts. The Factories Act 1948, Environmental Protection Act 1986, Air Act 1981, Water Act 1974, Hazardous Waste Management rules that have been brought in by Indian government is 2016, and of course Companies Act makes it mandatory that everybody publishes their sustainability report, which now gets transferred into, which now gets more or less related to ESG reports. And there are various laws with respect to health and safety, which again calls for ISO various standards, ISO 45001. Now, all these aspects are covered under this piece of legislations in a very fragmented way. For example, see, if you look at section 134(3)(m) of the Companies Act, it requires that the board report to contain details of the conservation of energy. Now, when we talk about energy conservation, energy reporting, earlier Bureau of Energy Efficiency brought in Energy Conservation Act 2001. And we also have Electricity Act. But then Companies Act has also started discussing about mentioning their energy consumption by way of audit report or some various regulations. And also section 166 of the same Companies Act also calls for displaying or committing to the protection of environmental pollution norms. So if you look at all these parameters, by and large, you will find that water conservation or respecting water is what actually will call for minimizing all the parameters, that is minimized power demand, minimized energy, increased health, good health, increased safety parameters, minimizing capital expenses both at domestic and industrial level, and also minimizing monthly periodical operating expenses. So this is what actually basically turns out to be a move towards zero or net zero emissions. Now, some people might say, how does that thing? Anyway, we are going to be consuming electrical power for some or the other reason. But if you look at a broader perspective, any one issue can be taken to prove that it is very much moving towards net zero. So these are some of the things that I think we'll have to consider in this particular discussion today. This I think we have already touched upon. I would not like to go more about this part. But one important part is we have all been discussing somewhere or the other greenhouse gas emissions, carbon footprint, but very few of us have heard about water footprint. I think today the day will come where people will start talking about water footprint. And water footprint is predominantly being discussed when we have scarcity. That is basically when we have drought. At that point of time, every drop of water matters a lot. And that makes water footprint calculations more significant. And one more thing which I have seen most of us, we buy water, we don't consume full. And we sometimes feel that it is not dignified enough to carry half filled water bottle. We leave it on the table, which basically goes into the waste. But there are good practices in Europe, basically the German lifestyle, which I have been noticing, that a person takes only half a glass of water. Once he consumes it in full, he then goes for a second half. So it is time that we start considering those aspects and see that our water footprint is optimized. And energy footprint is already there. Water management is already being discussed about. Enhanced employee well-being. Well, this is something which I have discussed about health aspect. In industrial establishment, in domestic sector, we talk about our personal health, and quality of water will discuss much about employee health in industrial establishments. And of course, gender diversity, inclusive growth, development. Now, all the discussions that I have so far done with respect to water, power demand, energy demand, minimized pollution, all these things is now calling for a phrase called inclusive development. Fairness in engaging with customers, suppliers, and openness of business are some of the terminologies that would always be relating in directly or indirectly to water and its demand. And with this, I think I am almost coming to the end. Now, just to close, I would like to say clean water for drinking, yes, it brings in good health. Clean water for automobile sector, yes, good environmental practices because we use less chemicals, less water for automobile cleaning. That means we don't spill off washed away water into the environment. Clean water for laboratory use, yes, demand for software is eliminated. Clean water in the medical field, again, yes, because if you walk into any pharmaceutical sector, major energy driving parameter is maintaining the quality of water that is required for formulation of various medicines. And so is the case in case of making soap. And like I already said earlier, washing our hair, cooking vegetables. Then of late we have seen many of the agricultural produce being canned and then being exported to European market. Basically the gherkins, pickles, some of the pickle oriented thing. So some of them demand for good amount of clean water, both for washing as well as for storage purpose. So that also brings in good positive results. Now, nobody would like to have a saline soil. Increased in salinity in the soil. Everybody would like to have soft water. That is what we basically see. Agricultural community growing quality vegetables in where they have a source near the riverbed, and the same crops when the water is sourced from open wells or bore wells, the quality of the vegetables suffer both in terms of yield as well as in terms of the taste. So that is another good reason why I say watering the plant also calls for a good soft clean water. Like I already said about cleaning, it reduces your chemical demand. chemical reagents, and then also the reduced in the energy demand. Cosmetic products, yes, and this is something which we all would like to cherish upon. When we sit on the table on a glass of drink, we always look for ice cubes. Now, this ice cube, if it is transparent, you are quite happy. If it is not, then you are certainly 100% sure that you will start suspecting the quality of the ice cube. Soft, clean water brings in crystal clear ice cubes, and if you find any whiteness, that means the water is likely to be contaminated. And then here goes, even if somebody has to brew a bottle of beer, we need soft water. I think this now calls for what I would like to say. It's time, okay, learning and knowing about water science is, of course, a lifelong lesson. We can't say we are masters. We might have probably been educated to be engineers, we might have probably been educated to be doctors or any professionals in our life. But learning water science is a lifelong lesson, and we should always understand water shortage teaches us a lesson, and so is water in excess. Okay, with this, I think I would like to sum it up. It's already 45 minutes of my presentation. Those of you who would like to know or who would like to review my earlier water presentations or energy related presentations, they are available on YouTube. You can kindly click this, or you can even go to Mallikarjun Kamdal and then search for it. You will get them, or you can search for Energiest. Okay, with this, I think I would say cheers to all of you for attending this today's session, and special thanks to Chandigarh chapter and Rajasthan chapter and also FEMA for having accommodated me in today's session. Before I close, I think it is important that I acknowledge all the people, all the resources which, apart from my own personal experience, some of the information has also been collected, like say the rainwater, quality of water, and the contaminants, everything from various research papers published across the world. So I would thank all these people whom I have referred to in my presentations. I think with this, I thank all of you again for having spared your time, attended this session, and made it up for today's Tech Talk. Thank you one and all. Sir?
Mr. Manikanda, do you have some question over here?
Yeah, if there is anything that you would like to know, yes, I am available.
Have those? Or are you available? I think I am not having seen over here any question.
Yeah, it's
that. So, Manikanda, are you available?
Yeah.
Do you have some question on this? Hello.
So I could see in the chat box there are no much questions. No, the chat box also no questions. No question we can see.
Okay.
Harshit, I think, has raised. Yeah, Mr. Harshit? Harshit and Mr. Saini. I think you'll, Mr. Mani, I think you'll have to unmute. I see Mr. Harshit raising his hand.
Unmuted, sir, unmuted.
Can you read the questions and answer it?
No, he has just raised a hand. Probably he has not. Yeah.
So good evening and thank you for such a nice presentation.
Welcome,
Uh,
sir.
as regard to water quality, I have only one issue which I have faced in my own institution. I was working for a healthcare institution.
Hmm.
That without knowing the water quality, we all have a thirst to install RO, and at our homes and at educational institutions and all other institutions, we are continuing installing RO systems without really knowing what does it do, whether it is actually required, with the result that the required minerals are also filtered out by RO, and then there are uh, diseases and issues, healthcare issues related to it that crops up. So is Government of India or any other institution looking into it, or is there any regulation about it, sir?
See, regulation, there is no regulation. I have not come across any regulation as such. It is basically once one will have to do a lot of research. That's what I said. Touched upon evaluating what I need. The asset that we purchase should be evaluated before we actually purchase. For if what you mentioned about RO, see, for every liter of filtered water, we lose out around 2 liters of water, which goes out into the drain. And unfortunately, it has no relevance to the hardness. It is okay if the total hardness is high, 2 liters being drained out is fine. But irrespective of the TDS content in the water, we find most of the RO units filtering out 2 liters into the drain, and 1 liter being stored as filtered water. So there are many things that we need to be touching upon. Like I said, each topic would become a subject by itself. RO is a subject by itself. But no government rules as such, what I know about. Except that water pollution is one part. For minimizing, controlling water pollution, we have government laws. But for selecting a RO plant, no. Did I answer your question, sir? Hello? Hello? Mani, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Ah.
You are audible,
I think Mr. Sani has got his question answer.
Uh-huh.
There is another question in the chat box. How badly does hard water affect the lifespan of machine?
So it depends on the hardness of the water. There are cases where the equipment fails in the very first month of its operation. There are cases where the asset has never failed at all.
Yes.
Sir, this is Rashid. I'm from MMU chapter under Chandigarh chapters. I have a doubt that, sir, our university have a STP water plant also system for harvesting rainwater. But in this process of recycling water, the rainwater also changes water property. Because we all know that rainwater is soft water, but after the process of recycling, it becomes hard water. So, what was the main component during the process which changed the property of rainwater? Or any idea for preventing this?
Now you come again, you mean to say when rainwater gets added to the STP, the water gets hard, right?
Yes, sir.
See, in fact, I would say by adding rainwater to the STP process, the STP process volumetrically it might go up, but the amount of water purification level would come down. And basically, there is one thing. See, STP is basically sewage treatment plant process.
Yes, sir.
And if water is going into the STP, that means it is going through the drains.
Yes, sir.
So you will have to address that issue in the first instance. But diluting the pollutants is certainly going to add value to the STP process and not degrade that. Please understand there is a lot of difference between WTP, that is water treatment plant, ETP, that is effluent treatment plant, and STP, sewage treatment plant. All these three have different applications.
Okay, sir.
In any case, rainwater, when added to any of these processes, will reduce the chemical demand. Volume of liquid being handled might go up, volume of water being treated might go up, but then the total impact is much higher, is much on the positive side.
Okay, sir. But
Yeah.
is there any chemical requirements for the rainwater or not?
No, you don't require any chemical. In fact, all chemicals are made by using rainwater, pure distilled water. You don't need any. You don't need to add any chemicals to the rainwater.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Welcome. Any other questions, sir?
Anybody have any question? You can unmute and ask the question. So I think we have no further questions. So thank you very much, Mallikarjun ji. You have
Thank you, sir.
Given a deep knowledge of water and energy and water properties and impact of energy, decarbonization, and even ESG reporting standards also. You told us about the hard water and soft water and its effect of hard water on the health issues, installing water softeners, lifespan of appliances which are using the water affected by the hard waters, using this descaling also, because scaling is one of the problem. Comparison of hard water and soft water. Even you have also mentioned about the step towards the net zero emission, and you have also talked about the ISO 50001 related standard for the environment, and water conservation aids in ESG standard reporting, even their regulations also, business responsibility and the sustainability reporting also. So all participants have taken deep knowledge about the water conservation and energy conservation, because water and energy are the two faces of coin. Because when we are drying water or we are using water, we are also simultaneously using the electricity. That energy is being used to draw water, to use water, or any thing we are doing with water is required electricity or energy. So thank you very much for giving knowledge, having expert lecture in this webinar. So we'll continuously taking your expertise, because you are also the member of the Energiest Chandigarh chapter.
Sure, sir, sure.
Member of technical committee, and you have also last year chaired technical committee also. So thank you very much again. So thank you all the participants also. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for accommodating me.
Thank you,
Thank you.
sir.